I have received 6 concussive blows to the head. And we're ranking them this week. Hellraiser 6 through 11. Hellraiser Hellseeker. Hellraiser Deader. Hellraiser Hellworld. Hellraiser Revelations. Hellraiser Judgment. And the 2022 requel, reboot, whatever, reimagining Hellraiser. Oh, shit. I used to compete competitively in fighting.
Did you?
And so I've had a couple of concussions in my life, obviously being punched in the face, being punched in the head, kicked in the head, knee in the head.
Is that what you call marriage over there?
That was a different fight I fought and lost.
Number of concussions though, right?
Yeah. And like a kind of a mild concussion, you feel mostly normal, but you just kind of have like this, it's not, you can't even really equate it to a headache. It is a feeling of, it's hard to describe. It's as if your whole brain is swollen, because it probably is, inside your skull, and it just kind of is a dull ache, and you feel slightly nauseous. And I'm not doing this for comedy. I'm not doing this for a bit, for a podcast. I'm not trying to be hyperbolic or exaggerate in any way. By the time I got to this point, Hellseeker, the 2002's Hellseeker, I already felt that way. I felt like I had been concussed by the 5 films we'd already watched.
Well, strap yourself in then, Jason.
But by the end of this, I felt physically ill. I'm not joking. I felt physically sick from watching 11 Hellraiser films. And the back half, if you want to call it that, the last 6, most of which are straight to video. All of them are straight to video because the remake was straight to streaming.
Hulu, yep.
I felt personally, physically assaulted by these movies.
Well, to build off that, and hi audience, you might remember me from last week's show, Hellraiser Part 1.
Oh, sorry, I didn't introduce you. My guest today is Paul from The Countdown, who some people say I deify and worship and grovel at the feet of too much. And for that, I say, Paul, we lift your name on high.
Lord, I love to sing your praises. I'm so glad you're in my life. I'm so glad you came to save us. You came from heaven to earth to show.
Not bad for a bloke who's been punched in the head so many times. Well done.
Yeah.
Now, thank you for that wonderful introduction. Thank you for those wonderful singing.
Yeah.
And I don't say that lightly because, I'm such a great singer, as everyone who's listened to me sing will know.
Right.
There you go. I was reflecting on my life choices during this week, Jason, in the last couple of weeks. And between this and the Slashers podcast, which if you're not listening to that, get on over there. It's coming to the end of its
Paul
short
and I
mini-series run.
Are too busy. We're 2 really busy guys. So 2 years ago, I approached him and said, hey, man, we're at max capacity as far as our ability to do things. Would you like to do a limited series where we chronicle every year of the slasher boom and watch bare minimum 7 movies for a year and basically create a limited series catalog chronicling the year? And so we've got slashers 80, 81, 82, 81 part 2, 82, 82 part 2, 83
and 84.
And 84. Yeah.
And I foolishly said yes.
Yeah. It's taken us years to get it done, but it's out now on all of your favorite podcast platforms. And we're joined by real film critic Megan Kearns.
Amazing.
Who's been on this show a bunch of times.
Megan's amazing. Jason's amazing. It's great fun, except for when worlds collide, Jason. And so at the time of this recording, which is obviously not at the arse end of October, right before Halloween,
right? Yeah,
is the same week where I watched let's just say, a number of
14
films
slashers.
for the slashers.
Yes.
And without giving
11
away
Hellraisers, 14 slashers, yes.
without giving too much away about the episode that we're going to record in fairly short order, this was fucking hell on earth. I don't think I've had a worse week watching films in the history of my podcasting, which is now 8 and some half years.
That's saying something.
Fever dream levels of, oh my God. And I didn't watch all these Hellraisers this week. I watched them over the last couple of weeks, but I did watch a number of them while I was away for a weekend, watching them in bed on my little iPad and half starting to fall asleep and then having these weird dreams, having to rewind and watch the last 15, 20 minutes again. And then not being able to discern what was reality and what wasn't.
Wait. No, wait, let me stop you right there. That you watched so many Hellraisers that your mind became the plot of a Hellraiser movie.
Pretty much.
We could have taken what you just said there and made a straight-to-video Hellraiser movie where a guy watches so many Hellraiser sequels, he can no longer distinguish between reality or if he's watching a movie. And the big twist at the end is he actually has been in hell the whole time, and that's his personal hell. And Pinhead shows up for 5 seconds.
And spoilers, it wouldn't be any worse than about half of the entries that we are talking about this week. Holy
more than half. There's
shit.
These movies are no good. And I want to say something. This is just basically giving away the whole episode. We have done, this is the 4th annual Paul and Jason Spooktacular. Yes. We had, which is sort of the inception point for the Slashers podcast, if I'm being honest. But we started with the Halloween series. We then followed up with
Nightmare.
No, Halloween.
Okay, I believe you. It's your show.
So we followed up with Nightmare on Elm Street for the 2nd year. The 3rd year, we did Friday the 13th. 4th year, we're doing this. 5th year will be decided over on patreon.com/binge movies by assistant managers and elite patrons.
I'm pretty confident it's not going to be 11 fucking films long. So we're already winning, whatever it is.
I wouldn't be that confident. It depends on what the people vote for.
What horror franchise can be longer than this, or at least feel longer than this?
Ghoulies. They'll get you in the end.
There are a few.
Don't believe so.
This is the worst horror franchise we've ever talked about. This is hands down, definitively. These are the worst. This is the clunkiest, junkiest.
Oh yeah, this is the least enjoyable by a long, long way.
Yes. Yeah.
Bottom line.
Yeah.
And the other thing I
don't think there's 11. I don't think there's 11 Leprechaun movies. If I had to guess, Leprechaun is worse than Hellraiser. If I had to guess.
Come from the land of the Irish Spring. Dublin's the place where I learned my thing. From the Emerald Isle to your place in the hood. I'm the man of green, come to do no good. Left in the hood, come to do no good. Left in the hood, come to do no good.
There's some bad Candyman movies, but there's not 11
like 4 of them. So
yeah, and they're not essentially just the same movie over and over and over and over again.
Hello, everyone. It's time to play a game.
The weirdest thing compared to all the other franchises that we've talked about and all the slashers that we've watched that would spawn franchises for our other show. It's not the same thing over and over and over again in the sense of somebody finds a puzzle box and they open it and their desire opens it and the Cenobites come out. That's what you think a repetitive Hellraiser franchise would be.
That's what you wish.
Somehow what it becomes is there are no fucking Cenobites and it's just people living in limbo or a bad dream or they're already in hell or they're in a fucking coma or they're on their hallucinogenics. It's all in their mind. It's all in their mind. What's real and what's not real. And then at the very tail end, some kind of Cenobite or some kind of whatever creepy crawly thing happen. And it's like, they're not even, it's like, I don't know how to describe it. They're not even repetitive. Like every Friday the 13th, somebody goes and fucks in the woods. Jason kills him and then goes on a rampage.
Yep.
That's every Friday the 13th. Doesn't matter if a psychic raises him from the grave. Doesn't matter if he's struck by a bolt of lightning. Doesn't matter if it's a worm. Mm-hmm. At some point, he's slaughtering people, okay? It's always about Jason. Freddy, the same thing. Doesn't matter what kids die and come or don't come back, which kids do come back, who has powers, who has a baby, who gets an abortion, who doesn't get an abortion. It doesn't matter. Freddy Krueger and his nun mother show up in a movie. They find some bullshit reason to bring him back from the dead, and he does his deal. Same thing with Halloween. They find some bullshit reason that Michael Myers isn't actually dead, and he goes to Haddonfield and kills a bunch of teenagers on Halloween.
Which is one of the reasons why Halloween Ends suck so much, because they kind of went away from Michael. You'd think they'd watch this fucking series of films and realize, don't do that. Don't go away from your central monsters, creatures, pinhead. It's
by the
so
third
stupid.
film, they have decided that Julia is not the main antagonist. Pinhead is.
Yeah, well
You
done.
have selected that as the single best Hellraiser film.
Thus
And
far.
Put it on to our put it on to our guest list to be debated at the end of the season in Last Movie Standing Fallout.
When you make this point, can I jump in to say something after you do, please?
By the fourth movie, Pinhead is no longer in the movies. Really. He's a sideline character again. And the fifth, the sixth, the seventh, the eighth, the ninth, the 10th have fuck all to do with Pinhead.
Mm-hmm.
They've determined Pinhead is going to be the face of the franchise. The very next movie, he's not in it hardly at all. That is such a strange decision.
It makes no sense at all. It screams ineptitude across every level. What it screams is Dimension Films, the Weinsteins, had their fingers in this Hellraiser pie and they refused to let it go. And every few years, someone in that company panicked and said, fuck, we're going to lose the rights unless we make some shitty straight-to-video piece of shit. In one case, we'll get to it, within 6 weeks of making the decision to make the film, they shot the film. And as a result, it's exactly what you would expect when you have 6 weeks of prep time. It's a piece of shit. That's the only person who seems to know what they're doing is we just have to keep the rights to this franchise. And so every year, 3 to 4 years, like clockwork, they roll out one of these pieces of shit. Now,
do you think there was one single person in Dimension Films who had on their calendar,
yes,
like their iCal,
someone had
an
an
alert that was
exactly.
like, you're about to lose the Hellraiser rights, and they were like, hey, we got to go into production right now.
Yep.
Get into production. Get that fat guy in that Pinhead suit. That's not Doug Brown. I don't care. Get that janitor in that Pinhead makeup. Let's start shooting it right now.
But he doesn't speak English. That's all right. We'll dub over him.
It's all right. It's going to be at your local Family Video and Blockbuster or whatever with it, in fucking July. We shoot it in April. We dump it in on DVD in July, and boop, we've maintained the rights.
Yeah. The point I wanted to make just before we get off it is...
Did you imagine, though, being Clive Barker and watching that happen to this thing that you've created? Like, the inception of this franchise is, I've written some stories and they've been adapted very poorly. So I'm going to write my own story with the purpose of being able to sell it so I can direct it. And I believe the first Hellraiser is the best of all of these. And spoilers. And then immediately, and it's successful. It makes it turns a profit.
Mm-hmm.
It's very evocative. It stands out. It's very different from all the other fare at the time. The Freddys, the Jasons, the Michaels, the whoever else's. And by the second movie, they're like, well, we'll take some of your ideas, but we're going to go in a different direction, make it more marketable. And then by the third movie, it's like, well, we're really going to make a Nightmare on Elm Street film. Thanks, Clive. You get to present it. By the fourth film, it's like, he has fuck all to do with any of it. And he had to watch year after year after year them pump these movies out. Sometimes twice in the same year.
Yeah, that's bizarre. We'll get to that too.
And he has to publicly disavow them again and again and be like, I don't have anything to do with this. Don't watch these movies. And then it's insane. It's insane. Poor Clive Barker is crying somewhere in some underground, dingy S&M fisting club in the UK with getting a metal rod shoved up his urethra, like Paul could explain. And ding. That's the sound of that gong. You asked if that was diegetic or non-diegetic. It's not, I don't know if it's diegetic or non-diegetic, but it is sounding. That gong is the sound of a metal rod
going up Clive Barker's penis.
An 8mm metal rod shoved up the head of a dick and being dinged from the outside.
It scares me that you know exactly how many millimeters they are. Okay.
That's a thick boy, buddy.
Here's
my earrings. You gotta expand.
Complaint beyond the fever dream, the horrors of the last 10 or 14 days of my life.
The horror.
I come on once a year to do this Spooktacular, and sometimes I get invite a couple of seasons before and get to talk about something else, and then you torture me with a whole bunch of other shit films. And I was reflecting the other day, how come nothing I've ever chosen has gotten into the vault? I think I've worked it out. Because I keep doing these pieces of shit. You know, give me a chance. Give me a series of good films, Jason. Let me argue something good so I can get that in there, and then I'd have a slight chance that what I choose could maybe make it into the vault on the back of one of your so talented what do you call them? Debaters.
Debaters, challengers, champions, challengers. I hear you. I take that to heart.
And give me Lady One or D.W. Lundberg to do the arguing for my side. Thank you very much.
I think the Lady One's jersey's been hung in the rafters out here at Binge Movies World Headquarters. So he's retired from the
coming
debate.
back. Wow.
How you feel about Francois Truffaut?
No, that's not me. That's not good films.
You said you wanted good movies.
No, they're not good movies. I've seen the 800 Blows or whatever the fuck that movie was called.
400 Blows.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Well, I feel like you need to review that for Binge Movies. Stay tuned, folks. All right, let's get into it with 2002's Hellraiser Hellseeker. Hellraiser Hellseeker currently has a 0% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Too high.
Hellraiser Hellseeker was directed by Rick Boda. It was written by Carl V. Dupree, which sounds like the fakest name ever, right? Carl V. Dupree and Tim Day. It's a triumph return of Dean Winters, last seen in John Wick. This film was released October 15th, 2002 by Buena Vista Home Entertainment. You're welcome. On a budget of not available, it may not available. A car crash survivor suffering from amnesia searches for his lost wife, Kirsty Cotton, only to find her old friends instead.
The vulture climbs his own Jacob's ladder, and we all have to suffer for it. Which you have to be a Brooklyn Nine-Nine fan to understand that reference, but yeah, there we go.
Post-Matrix green glow, color correction, color grading. This movie is so boring. It's so cheap, so repetitive. Movies like this make me beg for the twist to be revealed so the movie can end, even though I already know what the twist is going to be. Movies that are horror movies, but are actually all in the mind, all in limbo, or you've been in hell the whole time. It's not scary, and nor is it interesting, because I'm not Dean Winters. You understand what I'm saying? I am not the lead character. So I don't care that he's having nightmares, because I'm not having nightmares. Nightmares are scary when I have them.
Yes.
They're not scary when I'm watching somebody else have them. Somebody else being in limbo has fuck all to do with me, because I'm not in purgatory. I'm not in limbo. I'm in the physical plane. I'm in this world. So I don't give a shit. I don't care about what's happening. For me to be scared or to be titillated or thrilled or haunted or grossed out by something that's happening on the screen, I have to have a way of, the movie has to get me, or the story or whatever has got to get me to identify with its central figure, its protagonist, for lack of a better term. And the next 6 of these fucking movies are going to follow the exact same path, which is, I do not relate to any of these people and their delusions and their nightmares and their phobias and their fears, because I'm not this whole franchise is now turned at this point. This is the moment on a dime where it's like they've all become monkey's paw movies, where the absolute worst human being you have ever met in your life, somebody who is a drug addict and a rapist and a murderer and a bigot and a neo-Nazi or whatever, is the main character, and we follow them around through gross fucking sewers and filth and shitty motels, and at the end, the whole twist is all of these surreal things that have been happening around you are because you're in hell. What does it have to do with me? How's that scary to me? I'm just sitting here watching somebody else's really bad, really horrendously digitally rendered surreal nightmares. I don't care.
You're 100% right. And I think everyone's probably had the experience in their life where someone who's not a child, so it's one thing if your kid wakes up and says, I had a bad dream, and tells you all about it, because they're processing.
Yeah.
But anyone who's an adult who tries to tell you about their dream is a fucking moron. because nobody in their right mind gives two shits. Their eyes instantly glaze over and they tune out. So why? Why on earth does anybody think, as you say, because this is not a likable character. And I was initially, this is the last time I did this for these, I was really making notes like, oh, that doesn't make sense. Why doesn't that make sense? And at some point I'm like, well, of course it doesn't make sense because none of this is real. It can't be real. He's flashing around. He's either dead or he's in some fever dream. He's unconscious or whatever.
In a coma or he's in hell.
It's one of those things. And I just stopped.
His brain injury.
Giving a fuck. He's bouncing. Every woman is throwing themselves at him mercilessly. And then they alien 3'd Ashley Lawrence in the first 3 minutes of this film. They killed her off, and poor Kirsty Cotton's. I'm like, what is this franchise doing? What
made Kirsty Cotton so interesting and what made her predicament in the first film actually menacing and scary? It's because the movie very subtly, and with the imagery as we discussed last time, conveys to us as the audience on a subconscious level that Kirsty is an innocent.
Mm-hmm.
She is just caught in the fray between. She is a young person caught in the ultimate family drama, right? You know what it's like, okay, when you're a young person, you're a teenager, maybe in your early 20s, and definitely younger than that, you have an awareness of the adult world around you, but it isn't until you get really older that you realize, like, oh, well, Aunt so-and-so never liked your dad because they had a falling out before you were born, and da-da-da. Like the dirty secrets, the dirty laundry of the family, the skeletons in the closet, you're not aware of that. The generation typically above you keeps you hidden from a lot of it. So you pick up on the tensions, but you don't know the history. That's kind of worked into that story on a metaphorical level where, there's this history between Frank and her stepmom, and there's problems in the stepmom and her dad's marriage, and what happened to her mom, and she's sort of at the fringes of all of it. And when she's thrust into the middle, the skeleton in the closet is literally her incestuous uncle who's trying to rape and molest her, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of family trauma and drama in that. And even if you haven't experienced 100%. That level of dysfunction, you have experienced some degree of family dysfunction, so you can relate to it. And she's an innocent who just so happens to open the wrong fucking box by accident, and all hell breaks loose in her life. That's scary. That if you just, out of curiosity or out of you just some accident, you end up opening a literal Pandora's box that tears your family apart. All of that is literal and metaphorical, and there's text and subtext. There's no text or subtext here. It's just we're falling around. Pinhead has been reduced to being an adjudicator for the most wicked people who've ever lived. And that's extremely mundane. I don't need Pinhead to be God Almighty who sits on the throne of judgment and determines how severe your hell is going to be. I can't relate to that. I can relate to somebody who stumbles into something that causes calamity, or that fear of if I stumble in the wrong place, my family could be destroyed. If I discover the wrong secret, if I learn the wrong thing, if I say the wrong thing, my family could be torn apart. That's on a subconscious level something everybody can relate to. I can't relate to anything that happens in any of these movies at all.
Yep.
And if the 2000s especially were so guilty of this, Paul, and I'll kick it back to you. How many of these fucking movies, not just Hellraiser, but so many movies from this era, they have some kind of horrific thing that happens. And the next thing you know, the person, sits up in bed and wakes up and it was all a nightmare. And then, another scary thing happens. And that was really the nightmare. And it's just like, so then none of that happened? Some of the horrific things that are happening because this guy's in fucking limbo. But he's having dreams in limbo and his dreams aren't real in limbo. Like, what are we, like at some point, the reality of the internal logic, as you like to say, I know I'm being Negatron, absolutely shatters into a million pieces. There has to be a foundational layer to your movie that this is real. Even if it's just movie reality, this is what's real. If nothing's real, 100%. Nothing matters.
The easiest thing in the world to do is discombobulate an audience when you don't give a fuck about anything making sense. You can cut
Right.
from
That's it.
one
That's
thing
it.
to another in the middle of a scene, in the middle of a line of dialogue. You can have them sit up in bed. You can do that extra scare thing. And then, oh, no, hang on, it was all a dream. No, I think everything was all right there. And then they go to work and as if everything's normal. And then the woman down the hallway saunters in a really tight top and really, really short shorts and throws herself at you and says, tie me up. And then next thing you know, he's on top of her. And now she's dead. But no, she's not. Now you go back down the corridor.
And he passes out and he wakes up, and now she's dead.
And then she's not, because he saw her down the corridor with her big, huge, powerfully built boyfriend who's like, what the fuck are you doing? Get out of here, pal. And like, that's easy to be discombobulating because none of it makes a lick of sense. And times that by about 5 different people in this film. Yep. And at some point in proceedings, towards the very end of the film, when things finally start to reveal themselves, because my note here is, oh no, this is all in his head fucking movie, very early on. So when I said I wrote a lot of notes, it was only for the first 20 minutes.
Yep.
At the end of this 88 or 89-minute film, in the last 5 minutes or so, where it's all laid out, and Pinhead finally shows up as anything more than a quick snap of whatever, and Doug Bradley gets to do a little bit of his iconic kind of work. No, you were murdered by, and it all turns out to be Kirsty killed all these people. So this innocence you talked about, and this is the last time we see her, right, in this series?
Yep, this is her last appearance.
So,
Ashley Lawrence's last appearance. Completely assassinates her character.
Yes,
completely destroys
what I was going to say.
Kirsty Cotton.
So we've gone from, and you might make an argument if you love this franchise so much, and I do not know how anyone could love the entire franchise, but that's the perfect end for her because she's been corrupted by everything she's seen. She's been so traumatized. She's, so to speak, turned to the dark side.
And the argument would be what Dean Winters, her husband, does to her through
tips her over the
infidelity
edge.
and plotting her murder, tips her over the edge, and so
she does what she has to do.
And he brings her the box back. She finally reveals her secret to him. That reason why she's a little different is because she had this horrific. And he goes and somehow magically finds the lament configuration, and then is able to get it back to her hands. And she's like, "Okay, you really want this?" And then whatever.
Bam, opens it and then proceeds to. I'm not quite sure whether she did murder all the other women he was sleeping with, presumably, because we flashed to that.
She had to give him 5 souls in exchange for her
own. And you'd think, given the way that Pinhead gets really pissed off about the fact that all these deals keep being made in earlier films, that he wouldn't have done this again. But anyway, because he's been chased. But he did it anyway because that's the film. Because otherwise, this doesn't exist, and she just gets killed.
First movie, he's like, no deals. You open the box, we come for you. And she's like, and then he's like, okay, well, maybe we'll strike a deal with you. And then they don't.
Yeah, they break the deal in the first one.
Frank back. And then they go after her.
Yeah.
And then it's like now 30 years later, he's like, all right, Kirsty.
Give it another bash.
I'm on Team Kirsty.
Yeah, none of
her husband was an adulterer and wanted to commit insurance fraud or whatever. It's just so, oh my God. That where it really jumps it jumps the shark all the way through, but where it really, really gets me is at the end. The cop. Now, okay. Fuck. I don't want to break this one down too much.
No, I think we don't need to talk about too much more.
Some of the people in Dean Winters' limbo, I think what we're supposed to believe is that this is all happening sort of in the dying synapses of his brain. And so he's still partially, even though he's got a bullet through the head and they've dragged him out of a car that has gone into a fucking river. And he's on a gurney getting put into a body bag. That part of the reason why reality is so fragmented is because his literal brain is fragmented because a bullet has gone through it. But the cop who's investigating the traffic accident is in his brain, in his limbo state, as well as one of the EMTs or the coroner's assistant or whatever, medical examiner's assistant. So all of these figures who end up showing up in the end, like the fucking Wizard of Oz, and you were there, and you were there, and you were there, are all in his head, except for none of this was in Kirsty's head. This was all in his head, and most of his head has a fucking hole in it.
Right.
So I don't understand how he knows people he has never met, and they're in his limbo state with him. He hasn't met them. He's dead by the time they show up. And then the cop is like, oh, well, we're just going to go ahead and let you go home because it's pretty clear here he killed himself, and we pulled the car out of the water, and he really killed himself. And they don't have questions for her. They don't send her to the hospital.
No.
She is also almost drowned, in the river.
Jason,
they wrap her in a blanket, They give her the lament configuration back. He's like, well, go ahead and take it. Your
What's this?
gift.
This is crap.
And they send her the fuck home. And send her the fuck home.
Here's my
Nobody
question.
ask any questions.
Well, here's my question, Jason. If you were in the process of murdering your adulterous partner who was about to try and kill you, would you choose the time that they are driving a car at speed across a big bridge to pull the trigger?
I think she's doing that because that will make her look innocent.
She should have died, let's be honest. But second of all,
yes.
Like, I'm pretty sure that anyway, look, I'm thinking about it too much, but gun to the side of his face, boom, blows off his face in the only half decent kill. I guess it is the only kill in the entire film. So that's the best death, right? Nothing else is real. Yeah, it was so lame and so poor.
Well,
I couldn't believe it.
Here's where it really gets me. The cop goes, well, we know it's a suicide.
What?
Because the gun we found, or the gun we retrieved from the river, is the same gun that was used in all the other killings.
That makes perfect sense.
As he's saying that, they're literally pulling the car, hoisting it out of the river behind him, which means nothing's been tested. No forensic work has been done. The ballistic work hasn't been done. It's not 5 weeks after they pulled the car out of the river. It's as they're pulling the car out of the river. He's like, well, you're exonerated because clearly he killed himself because it's the same gun he killed these other people with. What the fuck?
Except my memory is most of those other people weren't killed by a gun. But anyway.
No, they were strangled, suffocated, tortured. What the fuck? But we only really saw like most of their murders partially through the limbo memory.
True.
I don't know. None of this makes any sense.
No, let's stop talking about it.
It's a 1.5 out of 10. It's a 1.5 out of 10. It is number 4 for the week. This stinks.
Ooh, we disagree somewhere then. I also have it as a 1.5 out of 10, but I have it as my 5th worst of the week. So I like one of these ones better than you did.
What is no, because we got 6 of them.
Yeah. So.
Oh no, yeah, you're right. Yep. Yes, you're right. Yeah. What is terrifying is that the Cenobites are nearly beyond human comprehension, right? But that our innate curiosity could lead us to them. It's cosmic horror, right? This is a bad episode of Tales from the Crypt.
It's not even that good. The worst Tales from the Crypt episode is better than this. Oh, God.
That's what I'm saying. It's a bad episode of Tales from the Crypt. Correct. It's so reduced, the Cenobites, and really there's no Cenobites anymore for the most part. It's just fucking Pinhead. It's reduced the idea of that cosmic horror to it's just literal hell, and he's just God's punisher. We're
not even sure it is literal hell, whether it is like just the synapses in his brain. But anyway, yes.
Oh, that's not. Yeah, there you go. All right. Well, this is the perfect title for this fucking franchise. It's Hellraiser Deader, because there's nothing could be deader than this fucking franchise. It came out in 2005. Currently has a 14% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Wow.
Somehow.
Don't open the box. Don't. Please.
Probing into the mystery of the undying.
There's no difference between being dead and alive.
Opens up the fiendish portal to the netherworld.
Your soul is mine alone.
Is this resurrection or living in hell?
You'll help him only if you become a deader willingly.
Hellraiser 7, Deader.
This one was also directed by Rick Boda, is written also by Tim Day, but this time with Neil Marshall Stevens. It's the triumphant return of Carrie Werr and Eight-Legged Freaks, giving probably your all-time worst performance. Yes. This one was released June 7th, 2005 on a budget of not available. It made not available. A gonzo reporter is sent to the land of cheapo horror movies to discover the secrets of the latest Eurotrash fad. Dying.
The stupidest cult in the history of cults gets what's coming to them as Pinhead is relegated to being a bench player in his own series.
Bob Weinstein directed the writers of this movie to rewrite Deader, which was there's a movie that was just going to be Neil Marshall Stevens, I think, right? It was just going to be called Deader.
So it wasn't even going to be a Hellraiser film.
Correct. And Bob Weinstein was like, we're going to lose the fucking rights.
There we go.
So
it's him.
I want you to rewrite Deader into a Hellraiser sequel, but I want you to also rewrite it so it feels more like a Japanese horror movie, like The Ring or Pulse. which is, we talked about this before many moons ago, Paul, in your first appearance. This was when America, we early
Remaking
2000s,
all
we
the
were
Japanese horror
remaking
films. Yeah.
all the Japanese and Korean horror movies. So the film was originally rewritten to take place in London and later the east side of Manhattan before the producers opted to film it simultaneously with the next Hellraiser sequel, Hellworld, in Romania. So they just changed it to Romania. I'm telling you now, if you're watching a horror movie, especially if it's straight to video, and it was filmed anywhere in a Balkan state, that movie sucks. If a horror movie is filmed in fucking Romania, it's dog shit. It is the land of cheap ass horror movies.
Uwe Boll
Your
disagrees.
acting is going to be the woman at the end of this movie who is Carrie Wer's replacement, the next reporter in line, very clearly does not speak English. And that's what you end up with. You end up with we actually had a real problem during the production of the Hellworld and Deader because none of the production crew spoke English, but the directors and actors spoke English. That's what you're talking about. You're just going to the cheapest place on earth. You might as well send your crew to Chernobyl and go film a fucking movie because you know very few people are going to watch it. Very few people. You might be able to trick some folks at the video store in this era of picking up like, oh, there's another Hellraiser? Oh, I must have missed that. And they go and they take it home. And you just pump out 90 minutes of the dumbest fucking shit you can.
Of Drek.
In the cheapest place on earth you could possibly film it with actors who no one has ever fucking heard of. You get one semi-recognizable face. And if Carrie Wer
is the best you can get,
the most recognizable face to sell this box to fucking Rubes and Marks, the video store, you are in the shit, brother. You are in the shit. The best thing this movie has going for it, if you ever want to see Carrie Wer's tits, that's what's in this movie. And I'm not even sure they're really her tits because I think it's a prosthetic chest.
Yeah.
That's it. That's the best thing you got. I think this is the only nude scene I remember her ever doing. It's in this fucking trash movie. We reincorporate La Marchand, and the heir of La Marchand is the leader of a fucking cult who is somehow semi-accessing the Cenobite world enough to come back with the power to raise the dead.
Yeah.
It's basically Flatliners.
It is. Didn't think about that.
Hellraiser. I don't understand it. What's the goal? What's the goal of this cult?
Well, I can't. He says something at some point, but it got glossed all over for me in amongst the madness of this infuriating kind of. She says, no. The whole point is they have to agree to it. They get pressured into it because it's a cult, but they have to agree to it. Yeah, he just goes ahead, presumably, and kills her.
Well, yeah, that's the big twist. The big twist is there's a moment where there's a fake out where we think that she's been killed to experience this ritual, but then we're unclear if she was. But then the twist is she actually was, and 3/4 of this movie she's been dead the whole time. And she's been experiencing. You have to be physically murdered to go somewhere between
earth and hell.
Your childhood trauma and heaven and hell all converge. It's Flatliners. You go into your childhood trauma and then somehow you get immortality out of that, but you're actually dead. But the people who are dead aren't really dead because they're dead, but they're alive in limbo. But when she comes back, some of them who were alive in limbo are alive for real, but some of them aren't. Like it's just a mess. It's a fucking mess.
Pinhead follows them back and, of course, kills this stupid cult with 2 waves of his hand and 1 big hook with the chain trailing behind it.
And he's like, I'm La Marchand. I summon the power. You don't control me. I control you. And Pinhead's like, no, you are just the heir of a toy maker. You're not meddle with powers beyond your understanding. Just rips him apart.
Yeah, with that one. I mean, they kill basically 8 people in 2 shots, and that's about as good as this whole film gets. It is unbelievably bad. Jason's not doing it justice when he describes how horrendous this film is. There's nothing to it. Like, the last film was terrible, horrendously terrible. This is even fucking worse because this
is horrible.
Because it hasn't even got Ashley Lawrence in there. It hasn't even got Kirsty Cotton and sort of flashing back and like, well, surely got to do more with her. She can't really be dead right.
Say whatever you want. Say whatever you want about Ashley Lawrence, but her performance is okay for what she's given. And Gene Winters is an actor. He's an actual
Yes.
actor. The people in this movie, they're not actors.
No.
They're barely human beings.
The production design
They barely
is
speak.
so
They barely speak fucking English.
this week, as you say, because we're shooting in Romania on the cheapest possible budget we can, and Rick Boda is clearly a hack director who probably washes, I don't know, the Weinstein's bathroom in his spare time because you can just do it. Who cares? Just keep us the rights. It looks terrible.
Correct.
It's cut terribly together. It is again that fever dream mishmatch of bouncing around things. You don't really know what's going on. Like
hallucinations are the bastard
God.
cousin of it was all a dream.
And then
You know what feels like a giant waste of time when you get to an end of a movie and they go, it was like you said in the last episode, it was all a dream except for the muddy feet, This is not it's all a dream. It's all a hallucination. It's like, oh, who cares? Who cares? I don't care about somebody else's hallucinations. I don't care. I'm not having them.
Yeah.
I don't care.
I'm not dumb enough to go and investigate a dead occult. And the editor on this thing as well, who guy sends him on her way, he doesn't give a fuck. Like, you just sent one of your employees to the death, and the implication is you kind of had a thing for her, which, by the way, you had no chance because it's Carrie Wurr and you look like you. But anyway.
Yeah, right. But that's the... You see, that's what I mean. They populate these movies with... There's not a character you can root for because the way we're introduced with Carrie Wurr is she's in some London flop house with severely addicted heroin addicts and crack addicts and drug addicts who have open sores and who are laying in their own filth and have to shoot up just to feel normal. And she's pretending to be one of them. And then come to find out she was actually in there just to record the audio of their moaning and their groaning and their suffering. And they're like, hey, we finally went out and stole enough stuff to get more drugs to shoot everybody up so that we can just kind of not die, not go through withdrawals. Do you want us to shoot you up? And she's like, no, thanks.
I'm good.
I got what I came for. I'm good. And then it's like, oh, so you just embedded yourself with these desperately ill people?
Yeah.
These desperately
you don't care
ill people who need serious care and medical help just to fucking record their suffering? Just the noises of their suffering? Here's the other thing, Paul. How's that a story? She's like, I got the big scoop. When she goes to her editor, it's like, how's that a big scoop? You have a tape of people laying in their own shit and piss and vomit on dirty mattresses going, oh, because they're desperate for drugs, because they're dying.
Yep.
That's not a story. That's snuff.
Human misery.
And that's the thing. It's like, oh, see, you're supposed to want to see her get it.
Are we?
And the editor, you're supposed to...
I didn't do a good enough job of that.
Well, I think it's the tone of all of these movies. You're supposed to want to see all of these people get it because they're all bastards. They're all
I didn't give a fuck.
They're all like every character. They missed the point. From this point forward, every lead character is basically Frank. Frank is the fucking villain.
Mm-hmm.
He's not. I'm not sympathetic towards Frank's plight. I'm grossed out and terrified by him. I don't want to watch 90 minutes of Frank trying to escape hell. That's all these movies are.
There's one exception, which we'll get to in just a moment. But you're right. They absolutely do continue to put pieces of shit people in it rather than, like you said, they lost the mission statement. I don't know, somewhere when Clive Barker wrote the original film, it was innocent person gets caught up in hell.
For cosmic horror.
Yeah, for want of a better description. And they mess with that. It continues at the second one. The third one, we still get
S&M HP Lovecraft teleports into your bedroom and you're fucked. Yep. What are you going to do? That's the horror.
And in the third one, they kept with a good character at the heart of it. As much as you don't like that film, at least they continue with that very simple premise. Like, she's still a likable person. You're meant to like her.
I will agree with you there. Yes, right.
And likewise, the fourth one as well, when the guy who at least at the end is trying to bring an end to it, he's a decent enough bloke.
The wraparound guy, the Dr. Merchant is he's a good guy.
And the contemporary guy who built the building, he's not a bad guy either. And probably the toy maker as well. Originally, he didn't do it for the wrong nefarious reasons.
Yeah, very true.
So
very true. Right.
Then after that, it's just been all downhill. Every protagonist has been a piece of shit. And this is the worst of them all, both in terms of the protagonist, in terms of the acting, in terms of production design, in terms of the complete lack of horror, in terms of the shit special effects. And this was a putrid moment in my film watching existence, and I cannot believe I managed to sit through the whole thing. That's how much I love you, Jason, and this show. But dear God, no one should put themselves through this. just read the 2-paragraph synopsis and move on with your life and be very, very happy that you did so.
How many times in this movie, Paul, does the main character stand there as they're given some vague speech by a ghoul, a ghost, a demon, a cult leader, an editor, or pinhead? The main character just stands there. I think at this point I realized, can we just say at this point in 2005, Hellraiser is a 1, maybe 2 movie idea at best.
Mm-hmm.
This is not an ongoing series. It is a 1 mind-bending, disgusting, subconsciously horrific story. It is a ghastly tale from another dimension. It is certainly not a series about a revolving cast of D-list actors facing psychological horrors under heavy color grading with fucking just bleeps and bloops of Pinhead dashed in. That's what this is. That's what it is.
Yep.
I just can't stand it.
Yep.
I cannot believe it. I could go the rest of my life without watching another horror movie where the lead is had a traumatic childhood, and that's all being realized metaphorically
Yes.
to the boogeyman
Yes.
they're currently facing. I'm so fucking sick of it.
Yes.
And it's not just Hellraiser that does that.
a lot of
That's the
movies.
whole new trope of all of our horror now. It's like, well, what if it's Scream, but it's really about trauma? God, fuck your trauma. It's what it's become is
It's a crutch to lean on.
Yes, it's the equivalent of the cop on the edge is a Vietnam veteran, right? The guy who's just, one screw loose, he's a Vietnam veteran. The slasher who's going to come and kill you because you're a woman is a Vietnam veteran, right? Vietnam veteran just became shorthand in Hollywood for
Messed
whether
up.
it's a good guy, bad guy, whatever. It's somebody who's fucked in the head and is going to do something crazy, right? And sure, there are great examples of it. First Blood, that's played for dramatic effect, and
Lethal Weapon.
and first Lethal Weapon, that's played for dramatic effect, and then eventually becomes comedy, which is sort of really fucking weird. But for every Lethal Weapon and every Rambo, there's a million Deadly Preys. There's a million fucking schizoids and whatever else.
Hellraiser deaders.
Yeah, and this is the horror movie equivalent of the Vietnam veteran. Person has trauma. We all have fucking trauma. Go to therapy.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't make somebody a well-rounded character. Being bisexual doesn't make you a well-rounded character. Being traumatized doesn't make you a well-rounded character. Doing drugs doesn't make you a well-rounded character. Having group sex doesn't make you a well-rounded character. Fucking the HBO-ification of fucking screenwriting is driven me to the point of madness. And we see it to this day. We've had 20 years and it started with fucking Hellraiser 3. And that's a combination of both of them. My dad was the Vietnam veteran
That's
or whatever,
true.
and he died over there. It's like, oh, I don't care. This is cosmic horror. This is the priest of a hell dimension where everything's topsy-turvy and pain is pleasure and torture is ultimate spiritual enlightenment has come to your fucking bedroom. That's it. That's the story.
That's what we want to see.
Try to survive,
Mhm.
bitch. And now here we are where it's, oh, well, maybe her dad. And I don't give a fuck about Carrie Werner's life. Oh, but you see the wound in her chest is a metaphor for her her childhood. And then here's the thing. Her dad abused her and there was incest. And it's like to take something so heavy as parental sexual abuse of a child and use it for a cheapo direct-to-video 7th fucking entry in a garbage horror franchise is offensive.
Agreed. And
it's fucking offensive.
And that's why we're meant to be okay with her doing what she did at the start of the film. That's why it's all about just getting the job done. And she doesn't really relate to humans and all the rest of that. She just exploits people.
She was raped by her father as a 4-year-old that we have to sit there and watch glimpses of.
Yeah, it's awful.
It's disgusting.
It's awful. And not to say
I'm not saying that
those things don't happen and whatever,
right?
But it doesn't belong in something like this.
You can write. That's correct. You can write heavy stuff. There's a way to tastefully do that and deal with the trauma. I might say I don't, but that's not what this is. This is cheapo. How do we write a character? We don't know. Give them a traumatic backstory. Now they're a person. That's not how it works.
You said it. It's Hollywood shorthand. Hollywood's the wrong word. It's fucking
correct.
C-grade studio shorthand. Because Hollywood would not, I don't believe, just throw this in there at this particular level. It would be a different type of film entirely. And are we trying to be?
What's to say? It's done. It can be less distastefully, but we see the same thing, Paul, when we did the Nightmare series, where Freddy's dead. All of a sudden, we go into the one girl who's never been a character in the entire movie's Nightmare at the very end, and turn out her dad was raping her the whole time. That's her trauma. It's like, what the fuck?
Right. Yep.
Like, it's just like, rape as the memory of rape, the memory of your dad raping you is like, it doesn't belong in this sort of junk. Because, okay, at the very least, we've been bashing this shit for 40 minutes. If somebody's like, these movies are like cheap thrills, right? These movies are just cheap thrills. And I'm just watching them because I know they're no good, but I just like, okay, I understand cheap thrills. That sort of level of real trauma and violence does not belong in movies that are for cheap thrills.
You're right. We have been.
If you want to say at this point, this is just junk, fast food movies meant to give you some bit of blood, bit of gore, bit of cockroaches, whatever. And that's all it is. Okay, fine. It's just gore and schlock and whatever. Then don't try to incorporate heavy themes of really fucked up shit. Just leave it alone.
All I want to see, and I think I speak for any horror film fan and any, at least the first 3 films, consider myself a fan of this franchise. All Hellraiser fans want to see is Pinhead leading an inventive group of Cenobites who are, as you say, lobbing into someone's life and then tearing literally people from their life one at a time and killing them and torturing them in horrific ways. That's what you come for. You don't come for this bargain basement, garbage level, psychological invested trauma that, this poor woman, look what she's had to go through. Now she's going through this. Oh, we feel bad for her. Do we? No.
Okay, so let's take a second here. You deal with this sort of stuff, or have dealt with this sort of stuff in your profession, in your day job, right?
Yep.
Is it? You've talked about before when we actually the very first part 1 of this, we're like the Dr. Chinar, Dr. Chinar, and we were like, the depiction of mental health professionals in American movies is offensive to you.
Yes.
Is the depiction of mental health trauma in American horror movies offensive to you? Because this to me is like egregious.
Yeah.
It really is.
Look, you're not wrong. I probably shouldn't stop at just the professionalism, but I guess that's what I target, just how horrendous it is.
Yeah.
People do messy things when their mental health is poor, but it's not like you see in these kinds of films. And the like, well, if it is, those people never present to therapy. Let's put it that way.
You've had people sat in front of you who have experienced horrendous things as children, correct?
Yes, 100%.
No specifics.
Yeah, of course not. That's not what we're here for.
Yeah. And you have to sit there and listen to it and empathize with it and walk them through that and know when to ask questions, know when to listen, know what kind of questions to ask, know all this sort of stuff. And to have somebody come along, some hack screenwriter, and try to do, like you just were talked about, some sort of like bargain basement undergrad, took one psych course. This is all an analysis for our, personality disorders or something. Like, what in the hell are we doing?
I'd be surprised they even took one unit. I reckon they picked up one online article, had a quick read and go, that'll do. Because here's my guess, right? The first film is loaded with psychosexual horror. It's a psychosexual horror film. Yep.
Point blank, right? Somehow they've taken that and to Barker's credit as a first-time director, and first time true screenwriter, because he actually worked on the screenplay, not just the story, understood that some of this needs to be conveyed impressionistically.
In subtext.
In imagery. I don't have to fucking spell it out. And it's also, I'm not trying to diagnose anything or anybody. I'm just showing you sort of the deepest, darkest recesses of human desire and how that connects it's like a metaphorically open door to this hell world, hell dimension. And some of it gets literalized, and some of it stays metaphorical. And even the second movie carries it over, even though he didn't direct it, but he was more involved in the production of it. And it's like they took that and it's like a stupid person's version of it, which is like, what's something that's sexual but horrific? Oh, being molested. And being molested by your sweaty, dirty dad. Oh, yeah. What if you just had a big fat guy and a wife beater and he was just laying on top of a little girl? Like, ooh, and what if like cockroaches came out of his eyeballs? And it's like, it's so beyond lowbrow. It's so juvenile in its understanding of human beings that at this point I was like, I don't know that I want to watch another one of these movies. This was the breaking point for me.
And for me, this is absolutely the worst of the week. I hated every moment and could not believe there was still 4 more to come, though. Again, without spoiling too much, I knew there was a little bit of hope on the horizon at least before we would finish. So,
yes.
Yeah.
Well, I give this one a 1.1 out of 10. It's my number 5. There's still one worse than this to me.
Oh, which one is it? That's interesting. I gave this 0.5 out of 10. It's the worst of the week for me. I fucking hated every single moment of this film, and this was the one which I put me into that fever dream mode and I had to rewatch it at several passes, at least 3 times, to try to understand what was going on because I was falling asleep whilst watching it.
All right, Hellraiser Hellworld is next up. It was filmed the exact same fucking time, the exact same fucking place. It has a 17% on Rotten Tomatoes.
By the exact same fucking director.
I'm going to a real-life secret Hellworld party.
Welcome, Hellraisers. Invitations. But if you need anything, just scream.
Welcome to hell.
The film was also directed by Rick Boda. It was also written by Carl V. Dupree, who I guess is that subhuman piece of shit that I'm talking about as the screenwriter. It's a triumphant return of... Is it a triumphant return? It is a return of Lance Henriksen from Hard Target. Is a return from Henry Cavill. Yes, that Henry Cavill. As seen in Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice. The film was released September 6, 2005. No budget, no box office. 2 years after his death, a group of Hellraiser video game addicts go to a party celebrating the game that killed their friend.
Forget Pumpkinhead. Lance Henriksen figures he can take matters into his own hands. As Doug Bradley has had all he can stand, he can't stand no more.
Yeah, this is the final appearance of Doug Bradley as Pinhead. The tagline of this movie is "Evil goes online," except for the fact after the first 5 minutes of this movie,
nothing to do with it.
It says nothing to do with the video game, and basically it's all about, it's a haunted mansion movie where I can't even begin to understand this. And here's why. This is filmed at the same time, but the same director and the same screenwriter, right? Carl V. Dupree.
Yes.
In one world, in one movie we watched, nobody knows what the Cenobites are except for this extreme Romanian cult led by the descendant of La Marchand, the original toy maker who made the original box, who's gone to the dark side and who believes that he will gain the powers of the Cenobites and be able to control them through the power of Leviathan or whatever the fuck. And it's this weird sicko underground thing that has only managed to come to light through an underground tape like The Ring.
Meanwhile,
somehow this editor gets. Meanwhile, in the same time, in the same world, but the same director and same screenwriter, the Cenobite lore has become so popular it's become the plot line, the lore of a MMORPG like World of Warcraft. And the players of this game, who are all addicted to it, are called Hellraisers. And they are all competing like Ready Player One in a global game to determine who's going to win and be selected to go to Romania to the Now, when did a fucking French toy maker have time to become the architect of a house in fucking Romania? Doesn't make any sense. But the Le Marchand house, where he designed this mansion, and they're going to go and they're going to party, and with all of these obsessive fans, and it's to the point where this movie is almost like, well, I'll just put it like this. Horror franchises go to schlock when they go to space or when they go meta. Most of the time. This is a quasi-meta Hellraiser, because all the characters we meet, they're fully aware of who Pinhead is. Mm-hmm. They're fully aware of the Cenobites. They're fully aware of the Lament configuration. They're fully aware of all the lore of Leviathan. They're fully aware of everything. But to them, it's all a video game or a fairy tale or some sick story that's been turned into a video game, and yada, 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 yada.
Until their friend, which is what happens in flashes in the opening credits,
correct,
gets so obsessed with it, he either, and they're not sure, kills himself or someone kills him or whatever it is, and they're all traumatized.
Or Pinhead comes and gets it. We don't know.
His
but
brother,
he sets himself on fire, right?
Yeah. Okay. So his brother is, really dark at the other friends because, I don't know, he somehow blames them.
They have not stopped.
And then 2 years later,
have not stopped playing the game.
Yeah. And then somehow the genius writer is Carl V. Dupree, and from the story by Joel Sison, managed to make the brother decide to go to this mansion anyway because I knew you'd all be here. What? That makes...
Which is also invite only.
It's not even his brother. Is it his brother? I don't know. No, it can't be his brother.
I think it's his brother. Or another one of the friends.
Must be another friend. Can't be his brother based on how this film
yeah.
winds up, because that would make no sense.
That's true.
Yeah.
Right.
But that's certainly the impression I got. He's like so much closer to Adam, who I think it was.
We should have stopped him. We saw that he was becoming too addicted. He was getting lost in this world. And we were so busy playing it, enjoying it, that we let this guy go down too far, and he ended up killing himself. So it's all of our fault. And none of you... I stopped playing the game. I stopped giving a shit, but none of you did.
Yeah.
You kept playing the game. It's as if you never even cared about his death.
But now I'm here anyway, because fuck all that.
But now I'm here at this giant Hellraiser rave to celebrate this video game. And then I get into the logistics of this, which is when our 5 main characters appear at this Scooby-Doo House of Wax haunted house, where Lance Henriksen never explains to these people who he is in relationship to the game.
He's just
a game that is a corporately owned property is running an official contest, right?
Yes.
Ready Player One style, Willy Wonka style, whatever. Even Uwe Boll's House of the Dead. Sega wants you to come and have a fuck party on this island with volleyball girls, and you get to take a ship and you go over and you're going to be... There's no marketing for this. There's no PR team. There's no marketing team. There's nobody from the corporation, from the software company behind this game at this party.
My score is dropping.
How are we also meant to believe? Because the twist is that Lance Henriksen is not affiliated with the game whatsoever.
No.
He's the kid's dad who killed himself because he's obsessed with the game.
Because I make one comment, don't they, in the funeral, like, where's his dad? Don't know, he's over he's on business. He hasn't even shown up.
This whole thing has been a concocted revenge scheme. Who are all these other people who are at this party?
Well, I assume they really are the gamers. But then, like you say, how did the game,
how does Lance Henriksen
hack into this? And
how does Lance Henriksen hack the game to be like, you won a ticket to Hellworld or whatever?
Fantastic point. They never stay. I mean, it would make sense if he did own the game somehow, or he was the company, but they never make that point.
That's never said. No. He's just a guy.
That's all right. I've dropped my score now. Thank you.
He's just a fucking guy. Okay. When we get there, Lance Henriksen takes... Okay, we've seen this to some extent before in the Halloween series when they do the reality show
Yes,
fucking Busta
Resurrections.
Rhymes, right?
No, is it Resurrections?
They go into the Resurrections. They go into the fucking haunted house, right? The Myers house. They have a whole announcement. We've seen this a couple of times actually, and the person goes, "Welcome to Hellworld," where you'll have this party and this party and this whatever. Lance Henriksen should have delivered a speech from the fucking balcony of this mansion to all the game players down below, welcoming them to the official party of Hellworld, taking them through the lore, taking them through this and that. In the basement, you'll find this. Go out, explore, do this, do that. And then you could write a scene where he then takes for whatever reason, a special interest in this one particular group of kids. They bump into him, and it seems almost by happenstance. And then he's like, "Oh, well, I'll take you on a personal tour myself, and I'll show you around." That doesn't happen. He ignores every other fucking guest at this party.
Yes, he does. And everyone just keeps dancing.
Only explains, everybody keeps dancing, and drinking, and fucking and sucking, and taking loads and giving loads and whatever. And he only takes interest in these 5 people to explain to them the history of this house and all this sort of shit. It is so badly written. I was like, I've seen a shitty version of this movie before, right? This is the shittiest version of this shitty version of this movie. There's a way that there's a way that you write this, right? Where they show up, they're partying, and then fucking Lance Henriksen. Also, by the way, you as a director, you sell that as a reveal where the doors open and there's light that comes beaming out the balcony, and then a real actor who we fucking know shows up in the movie. You go, "Oh shit, Lance Henriksen isn't this right?" And then you could kind of position Lance Henriksen the way he's dressed, where he kind of looks like Pinhead a little bit. I'm not saying you put him in the S&M gear. There's a similar cut to the jacket he's wearing, or this, that, or whatever. And he's like, "I'm so and so, the creator of Hellworld.
That's right.
Welcome to my party.
He needed to be the creator.
You've been invited."
Yeah.
Right. But instead, he's just some guy who rents the La Marchand mansion in Romania, even though we saw him at 20 years old get disemboweled in fucking France. When did he have time to build a house in Romania? Makes no sense. He's just some guy who rented it and then hacked the most popular video game in the world, sent fake invites
to anyone
to these.
Well, yeah, he didn't just hack
hundreds of people.
He rewrote it because they all had to pass some kind of level to get the invite.
That's true. Invited them to this party, did not introduce himself to anybody at the party except for the 5 kids he's trying to kill.
Well, that part I will forgive because I just assumed he'd done that already when they walked in, because he comes up to them as they walk in and the party's already in full swing. So I thought maybe they missed that. So I can live with that part.
That may be true, but that's not how you write that.
No, I agree, 100%.
It's bad. It may be true, but that's bad writing. Then we get to the other twist, and the twist is when he's taking them on the tour.
And they touch some of his shit, or he stabs him with a pin.
He's also spent a fortune on fucking. He's got 16 different lament configurations. How many fucking puzzle boxes are there now? And he's got a tarot card deck, but it's a Cenobite tarot card deck. And it's all of these props and all this history of all this Hellraiser shit, some of it which is just entirely made up for this movie. Some nun who fucked Pinhead, and oh, whatever the fuck. And if they touch stuff, and the big twist is there's a very strong psychedelic drug. And some of them breathed it, some of them smoked it, some of them drank it, whatever. But it only targeted these 5 kids. And how he knew those 5 kids were going to touch and drink and fuck and suck those specific things, I don't know. But it turns out that he then took their bodies through the party, one by one, out of the fucking party,
buried them alive
into the fucking backyard, put them in pine boxes, and buried them alive. 5 or 6 people. And he's got some throwaway line. He was like, "I was so tired after burying you, I could barely make it back in the party." And it's like, how's this one man? These are 6 foot deep graves.
It's Henry fucking
He's
Cavill.
got 36, 40, 50 feet of fucking dirt. He's got a pile on top of these people.
It's so ridiculous.
Then goes back into the party And everything that we've seen after a certain point is he's put walkie-talkies into their graves and says he's been subliminally suggesting to them that they're being tortured by a pinhead and the Cenobites.
It was all very easy.
And their guilty consciences did the rest.
Yeah. And so once again, we're back in this fucking world of crazy things going on and nothing making sense, and smashing on window, and the police can't hear you or see you, but you're right there, I'm right here, and then someone else is in a different part of the house, and everyone else disappears, and someone else is getting a blowjob. If you ever want to watch Henry Cavill getting a blowjob in a movie, this is the film for you, by the way.
And he also sings "Holy Pussy." You ever see that? Ever see Henry Cavill do that?
Everyone's got to start somewhere. I do understand.
That's right.
It's bizarre. And Pinhead in this movie for a grand total of 3 minutes? Are the Cenobites reduced to that
two of those
level?
minutes? 2 of those minutes are hallucinations.
Yeah. And he only pops up literally in the last 3 minutes of the movie to actually kill the host.
So wait. Let's save the ending.
Sorry.
Okay?
Oh, I've spoiled it.
This movie jumps through the hoop of Hellraiser's a video game. Okay, that's a movie, right? Kids are obsessed with the Hellraiser video. It might be a bad movie, but that's a movie. No, we jump through that hoop. It's actually going to be a haunted house movie where we're in the Marchand mansion, and the whole house is like a giant lament configuration. Okay, now we're in a haunted house, almost like a Saw movie, kind of like it's a haunted house. Like we're watching people put in devices and get tortured and shit.
Yep.
Okay, that's interesting. That's a movie. And you go, no, that's not real either. The real twist is it's been a hallucination. So wait a minute. You wrote 2 completely new, brand new ideas for this franchise.
And jettisoned them.
And went back to the same fucking idea we've now sat through 3 other times.
But
what the fuck is wrong with you?
I will say this though, because it's better edited than those previous 3 entries. I didn't hate I thought I really was watching, as you say, this haunted house and being picked off one at a time. Even though it started to get a bit crazy towards the last half an hour, I was enjoying my time. When I say much more, this is all relative scale, people. This is still not a good movie. It's still nowhere near a pass, but it's so much better than the last 3 films that we've seen. I was almost relieved.
So, speaking of almost relieved, Henry Cavill's getting a blowjob, but the reveal is he's been in a casket the whole time under this hypnotic suggestion of Lance Henriksen via walkie-talkie. Does that mean that Lance Henriksen was pretending via walkie-talkie to suck off Henry Cavill?
There's a scene that shouldn't have made the cutting room floor.
Oh, I'm sucking you, daddy. Oh, I'm sucking you, daddy. Yeah, daddy. Oh, yeah. Right? Speaking of Pumpkinhead. What salvages this movie is at least a different setting, and the cast is more competent.
Yeah,
across the board.
And yeah, they are 100%. Obviously, Lance Henriksen as sort of the villain of the piece,
but even some of the no-name fucking kids that are just the red shirts to be killed, they're more competent actors.
Well, one of them's
better than what we.
Carrie Payton from The Walking Dead, Ezekiel from The Walking Dead, in a very early role.
Yes, that's right.
And
that's right.
Obviously Henry Cavill. And then Catherine, was it Wernick? Who's, she's not a great actor, but she's certainly easy on the eye. And at least she lends a degree of...
I didn't think she was a bad actress.
Bad, but she was
pretty solid.
Anyway, I guess what I'm saying is they were all much better than what you would expect.
Yes.
And so I absolutely did not hate my time with this one anywhere near as much. I'm so soured on the series by now that it's very hard to say this is a passable film, primarily because Pinhead is nowhere to be seen. And once again, we end up back down the well of, it was basically all a nightmarish hallucination / dream / limbo state once again. And that part really left a sour taste in my mouth.
But the kids, 3 of the kids accidentally really died because he had an air hole in a tube in the coffin, and I guess the idea was he was just going to leave him in the coffin to die or whatever, starve to death or whatever. But 3 of them died. One died from fright. One died. The one dude Ezekiel had asthma.
Yeah, he says, it's a pity that Henry Cavill died of fright. How do you know that? What gave that away?
How does he know? And when he's like, so and so, she was the one who is in the saw machine, like the saw contraption, the jigsaw contraption. She ends up ripping her own throat out of guilt, apparently, her guilty conscience.
Right, sure.
Yeah. How does he know that? Because he doesn't have fucking
There's no cameras, right? It's just a walkie-talkie, isn't there?
Yeah.
But even then, if he had a camera in there, so he died of fright? What?
Yeah, how does he know that?
So stupid.
Doesn't make any sense. Anyway, I give this one a 2.5 out of 10 and is the second best Hellraiser I watched this week.
Oh, really? Okay. No.
Yeah.
I gave this one a 3 out of 10. So you gave it 2.5 as the second best. Okay. This is the third best of the week for me. So
I can't believe this. I think I know which one you're going to go with for second, and it better not be this next one. Of course, I'm talking about Hellraiser Revelations 2011, 0% of Rotten Tomatoes.
Really? Come on.
Can we get a shot of downtown LA before we say goodbye to it forever?
Bye, LA.
This is gonna be an epic journey.
There is no better buzz than a tequila buzz.
That is true.
Whoa.
Get fucked.
Hellraiser Revelations was directed by Victor Garcia and written by Gary J. Tunnicliffe. Tunnicliffe would eventually put himself in as the main character of the next
in the film he directs. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a triumphant return of absolutely nothing and nobody. It's a release date of March 18th, 2011 on a budget of $300,000. The box office is not available because it's straight to video.
75-minute runtime. Thank God.
Instead of a synopsis, I am going to give to you 2 quotes. One comes from friend of the show and former guest Scott Weinberg, who, quote, called the film, quote, a contractually mandated piece of intentional garbage that exists for no other reason than pure simple greed. This is amateur hour stuff all the way, and it'd be almost endearingly, stupidly enjoyable if this witless cinematic refuse wasn't dancing on the grave of a true classic of the genre. That's Scott Weinberg.
Very nice.
To finish my synopsis, I will quote Clive Barker. I have nothing to do with this fucking thing. If they claim it's from the mind of Clive Barker, it's a lie. It's not even from my butthole.
Yeah. Now, this is the one that I alluded to at the top of the show before I give my quick synopsis, where they had 6 weeks. 6 weeks to turn it around, and they went from shit, we need to make a Hellraiser film, to shooting it 6 weeks later. No, my synopsis is, arsehole young tourists get a lament configured, then return from hell to visit the same upon their families.
There's a character named Bradley. One family's the Bradleys, one family's the Cravens. Do you get it?
No.
Doug
Bradley.
Wes Craven.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Wes Craven had died before this movie came out. You get it?
Oh.
It's a tribute to him. Horror movie.
Can we all
Tracy
agree?
Fairway is...
Before we go any further, this is really important. Can we all agree this is the worst Pinhead that has ever pinheaded? I know it's the first film.
This is the worst Hellraiser movie that's ever been made.
I dislike 3 of the other ones more because I'll tell you why when we get there.
What the fuck are you talking about?
It's not a good film. I'm not defending it. I'm not hell on earthing it.
What the fuck are you talking about?
And I'll tell you why. It got me. One bit got me, which I liked. So it's more than I liked in 3 of the other ones that are all just fucking dreamscapes.
What the fuck are you talking about?
Maybe, Jason, it's worn me down so much by this stage, this series. Maybe.
Tracy Fairway gives one of the all-time worst.
Which one's she? Is she the mum of
Emma? No.
Oh, that's the daughter.
She's the sister who has half-ass fucks her brother.
Oh my God.
And it's never really addressed.
No, I think the worst actor, even worse than her in this film.
Nico's mom.
Yes.
Nico's mom.
Holy shit. She is unbelievably bad.
But she only has like 3 lines.
Thank
like,
God.
Nico, why are you doing this? Tracy Fairway is like the main character, is carrying this movie.
Is she?
Jay Gillespie as Nico is pure amateur hour. And this, pardon the pun, craven subplot of 2 degenerate suburbanite kids going to Mexico and killing a prostitute is in some of the poorest, most racist taste. This is a half-ass found footage movie. It's a half-ass funny games. And it's a no-ass Hellraiser. when Emma is watching the video, is she also, because apparently the Mexican officials see fit to take a handy cam, a Sony fucking handy cam that has a murder on it and
send it back to the family.
It's in a duffel bag full of pornos and ship it from a donkey show back to fucking Burbank where these fuck-offs live. And then the mom has just been obsessively watching her son fuck a whore, fuck a prostitute, a sex worker, and then beat her to death. And then when Emma starts watching it, is she also seeing the stuff that isn't actively recorded? Because it's continuously
Jumping
cutting
back
away
and forth between
from found footage to show you all this stuff that isn't on the fucking tape. Is she seeing that as well? Because it seems like she is. The dialogue, the family melodrama, what mom is fucking what dad is ridiculous. The idea that two kids went missing in fucking Mexico a year ago. And these families are getting together to have a cordial fucking dinner. And they've never once in a year ever had a discussion about their sons who have gone missing and are presumed dead. They're presumed dead because the Mexican government, the federales, shipped the rest of their shit back to you. That means they're fucking dead. They're dead. And you've never talked about it. You're just going to get together to have wine and drinks and a fucking dinner party. This girl makes out with her own brother in his bedroom, gets felt up by him, and is only grossed out by the concept when she gets a vision of him in his skinless form. Take everything, every ounce of praise we ever gave the makeup effects of the skinless Frank from the first Hellraiser that was made at $1 million in the fucking UK 30 goddamn years before this movie came out, and invert it. The skinless effects here are horrendous. This movie looks like it was filmed on sets that were made by hand. It's like, it's a back alley of Mexico. It's a High School Musical production level set with these people being filmed in front of it. This is tasteless, as Scott Weinberg said, amateur hour fucking garbage. And I have to sit through 45 fucking minutes of this piece of shit actor who the twist is so fucking obvious. The moment he shows up on screen, it's like, oh, sister, you're so beautiful. Let me put my cock in your mouth. I'm like, that's fucking Nico. Immediately, it's the twist of the first movie, Come to Daddy, but it's inverted where the girl's boyfriend is actually in her brother's skin and some kind of fucking bullshit. It's so clearly him the whole time. This is some half-ass funny games, horse shit. This kid obviously had just watched the Heath Ledger's Joker. He's doing his best goddamn Joker impression. And he's running around with a shotgun. He's acting crazy. I don't give a shit about any of it. This was interminable. I hate it. I hated it. This is anti-vault worthy.
Look, you could make a very, very strong argument that about 75% of this whole fucking franchise is anti-vault worthy. So not arguing with you there.
Paul, there's a moment where the two dads run out, the one dad with the shotgun, and they're like, oh my God, there's something going on. There's some kind of noise out here. And what we got to do is we got to try to, we're way up in the hills of this canyon and we got to somehow
we don't have phone cell to the main range out here. What the fuck?
Yeah, we don't have cell phone service because we're so far remote. So we have got to, one of us is going to have to take off and run and get to some kind of a road and go down the mountain to get to the town to be able to call 911. As they're delivering those lines, you can see the busy suburban street behind them, and six fucking cars are driving.
I watched this on my iPad.
I counted 6 fucking cars drive past directly behind them. That's in the fucking lens. You're the director. You see that. You don't call cut. You're the editor. You see that. You go, I think we need a reshoot here. They just left it in.
I missed that.
Because this movie was just shitted out.
Yeah, it was.
So that Dimension Films could retain the rights. They didn't give a fuck what this result of this was. This is the worst Hellraiser ever made, and this is the worst horror movie I have ever watched in the history of Binge.
Wow, really?
Whew. Yeah, this is the worst horror movie we've watched. This is worse than One Missed Call and Pulse and dark water and all that shit.
What about worse than what's the one that really, really abysmal one where the house gets turned into the suckling. The suckling. Worse than the suckling.
This is worse than the suckling.
Not for me. You mentioned the twist being really obvious. Look, maybe it is, but it did catch me out. I didn't get it till later in the film, and so I'm like, because I was creeped out and grossed out.
Because you're watching, he's half asleep.
Yeah, I mean that doesn't help, I'm sure. But all right,
Paul,
cool.
that's so far beneath your Paul. I am embarrassed for you.
That's fine.
That is so far beneath. That is so far beneath your level. You're the guy who catches on to everything. You're sitting here telling me you didn't catch on that when the brother tried to fuck his sister, it was obvious.
Well, that's the point where I'm like, oh my god, this is.
You're the one that bitched on the last episode of wow, you just put somebody else's skin on, and it's so obvious every time it's somebody else, and you didn't catch it this time.
My biggest problem with this whole fucking franchise is and I think I said this in the last episode too, is that when you slip skin on, it does not just magic someone else's skin on. It will not magically fucking conform. It's not magic putty. It won't just be perfectly. Steven and Nico, they're not the same fucking size. One of them's fucking half a head taller than the other. They're different body shapes, yet somehow.
And as we talked about, it gives you their vocal box as well.
Exactly. So that infuriates me that this continues down this particular line. But at least they killed everybody off. Thank God all these reprehensibly shit people all go to hell or die in the process. Even the dad just fucking blowing Nico away and then going, I didn't do it to release you. I did it, basically for revenge. I'm like, but you did just release him, you dickhead. Which way was, and even Pinhead, shit fucking Z-grade Pinhead who you barely see open his mouth on camera because they needed another actor to come over and do the voiceover. They dubbed it all in because they couldn't even find someone who was competent enough to pretend to be like Doug Bradley. At least they go some way to fix that next one.
Bloated Pinhead in this one.
Fucking awful. Yeah. He says, you're an idiot. We would have tortured him for the rest of eternity, and you've just blown him away. Good work, Dad. And then Dad dies.
Okay, now time out. If at this point in the series, the Cenobite hell is just hell. We talked about this in the last fucking episode. The soteriology, and the it wouldn't be soteriology. It would be no. The idea of the soul makes no sense here. If this is hell, legitimate Dante's Inferno, classic ideas of Roman Catholic hell.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Killing his physical body doesn't have anything to do with whether or not he gets tortured for eternity.
But somehow it seems to be that doing that allowed him to escape. That seems to be the very strong implication.
To escape to where?
Don't know. Well,
where does he go?
Not wherever the Cenobites
not going
are
to
from.
fucking heaven.
No, you wouldn't think so.
And his entire monologue of Nico's entire monologue of like why he doesn't want to go to hell isn't that he doesn't want to be tortured. It's because, to quote him, I love fucking too much, and I'm the first cock your little girl ever sucked. It's like, oh my god,
yeah, it's awful.
Talk about childish, infantile, beyond sophomore. What are you, 11 years old, writing this edgelord bullshit? That's all this is. 0 out of 10. Worst of the week. Worst of the series. Worst of the franchise. Worst of all horror movies.
Worst of all time. Worst film you've ever seen?
Worst horror movie that I've covered on Binge Movies.
Okay. I'm giving this a 1.8 out of 10. It's the fourth best of the week for me.
I cannot believe that.
1.8.
Name, what is one redeeming thing about it?
Like I said, the twist, I was like, okay, that works in this franchise as ridiculous as it does. And I did. You said it was awful, but when they ripped off, there's a quick shot of them ripping off Steven's face. I thought that actually looked pretty good. I'm like, okay, that's a good effect.
No.
So again, on my iPad screen,
it's digital under. I watch it on 4K TV. It's just shot on Shitio, Pro-Am, digital fucking cinematography under LED lights. You and I could shoot this shit. Fuck off. This is garbage.
Not arguing.
All right.
We're in a pretty awful state when 1.8 is considered to be a good score.
Well, you're like, this is the fourth best. Get out of here.
It is fourth best. Yeah.
Out of 6 movies, this is your fourth best? Paul, what's happened to your brain? I like I said last time, I think I broke you finally. I think you're done. I think if you're cooked.
Let's see. We got 2 more to go. Dear God, we got 2 more.
Let's put a fork in Paul. He's fucking cooked. 2018's Hellraiser Judgment, which currently has a 33% on Rotten Tomatoes.
What we're investigating is very dark.
Just curious. What do you see?
You think you're too close to this case?
Jesus Christ.
It's him.
What on earth is this place? It isn't.
Hellraiser Judgment was directed and written and stars Gary J.
Totally clear.
Yeah, you have the triumphant return of Heather Langenkamp, last seen in Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. The film was released February 13th, 2018, and a budget of $350,000. It made $426,000.
Woohoo! I don't reckon they put any money into the advertising.
Here's what I'll say. Paul T. Taylor is no Doug Bradley, but he's so much better than the last phony Pinhead.
Yes, 100%.
Now we've done it, though, because now we have this character called the Auditor, who is Gary Tunacliffe, Tunafish. And the Auditor now fully acknowledges the existence of Jesus Christ, it's God, in this Hellraiser universe.
This is the big change now, right? They've really added
we are full blown into Judeo-Christian myth cosmology now, because the one guy's like, Jesus Christ, he's like, oh, same neighborhood, wrong zip code. It's like, okay, all right, whatever. This is, if you've been listening to our Slashers podcast, Paul and I have said this over there. If you haven't, you should.
Please do get on it.
We've had hallucinations, Paul. We've gone to space. We've been in limbo and purgatory. Right? With this franchise.
Yep.
We've had meta commentary. We've had jokes at the expense of the Cenobites. We've done all of the cliche horror movie franchise bullshit. We have finally, shouldn't even say finally, because the one with Craig Schiffer is the same fucking thing, but we have circled back around
police
again.
Procedural.
To the police procedural. Why does every cheapo horror movie have to be like, you know what this should be? A very boring, half-assed version of Seven.
Yes, good way of describing it.
Before Seven comes out, I get it. But David Fincher took every shitty police procedural horror movie that ever came before it, and he perfected it into one all-time great film, period, let alone great horror movie, let alone great cop horror movie in Seven. Okay? Can we agree on that?
We can. Very good film.
The moment Seven comes out, they never should have made another police procedural horror film.
Well, that's like saying the moment John Wick 4 comes out, we should never have another action film. Of course they're going to keep making these films because it was such a success. But we are a long way removed from Seven by the time this is made.
Hellraiser does not need to be a police procedural, and it does not need to be a police procedural that is a half-ass version of Seven, where instead of the 7 deadly sins, it's the 10 commandments. And we get the same fucking twist from the Craig Schiffer movie, which is the serial killer who's going around, the adjudicator or the judger or the prefect or
prefector,
whatever. Yeah. Turns out to be you. You're the killer.
But this time, because we're not in his head the whole way through the film, we are bouncing around through third party, through other characters. I thought it was much better done, much better handled. As much as this is the second time I've seen this movie, I did watch it when it first came out and I disliked it immensely. I liked it a little bit more this time around, probably because it stacked up against all these previous entries that we've just sat here talking about.
Yes. Yeah.
It is definitely a step in the right direction. And I didn't, as much as we're now acknowledging, as you say, this Judeo-Christian idea of God and angels and all that coming into the world, I thought, oh, well, that's interesting enough. I can go with that if this is the direction the franchise has to go in from here. And I thought it was a unique way of doing it because the big part of the twist that works for me in this film is he gets captured, he gets put through the same, call it whatever you will, process, inquisition, judgment, I guess, given the name of the film.
Yeah.
And
Right.
At the end of it, like the dude who vomits up the shit. By the way, it's really gross stuff in this movie. Well done. It did make me kind of and cringe. So
extraordinarily disgusting.
So well played. And again, points for that. You think when the angel pokes her head in and says, "Let him go," the big fella basically has got plans for him. Oh, it's because he's too good a guy and he's close to hunting down the preceptor.
Well, he's innocent.
Yes,
he's innocent, and he's done these bad things, but he's a war veteran, and so he's actually innocent.
Here we are again.
And his handsome brother, who's fucking his wife, is going to end up being the killer. Is what you think?
And I thought, well done. Okay, good, good stuff, Phil. But no, actually, we let him go because his reign of terror is going to drive more and more sinners back towards God so that they can repent and redeem themselves.
He's going to be so terrifying as this serial killer that people are going to repent of their sins and come back to God.
I thought that was really good.
Which then makes the Judeo-Christian God just another level of Cenobite, basically.
Which is also very interesting. So God is not also great and good and the like. And so these concepts are there, but it's tacked onto a $350,000 budget, and it's dark and grimy and looks terrible, and it's shot terribly. Gary J. Tunnicliffe may have some interesting ideas as a writer, but goddamn, he's not a director.
Well, yeah, and the level of actors they have in this. And the thing is, okay, I am not bothered by the ending twist and the whatever. Like, I don't like, I will beat this dead horse repeatedly. I am more of a fan of the idea of it being cosmic horror than actual literal hell and Judeo-Christian blah, blah, blah. But if we've already gone to this direction by the third fucking movie, so let's just keep on going down the direction, I guess. What bothers me about this movie in particular is because they don't have the budget to fully execute the ideas. You get this beginning section with the auditor, which his performance as the auditor is actually pretty interesting. I don't mind the auditor character and the weird, like, I type up your sins on a typewriter and then I feed it to this fat guy who eats it and
vomits it up and down the tubes and then
pukes it up, and then titless women eat it out of, or not titless women, topless women, faceless. Yeah. They eat the slop out of a trough, and then that
proclaim
it's a Rube Goldberg machine of judgment of sin, but okay, whatever. At least it's visually interesting. It's something different. And then Pinhead is sitting on a throne in hell somewhere waiting for the final verdict or whatever.
And that's where it lost me.
Interesting.
You put Pinhead aside, being as an overseer who's kind of like a manager who's faceless and, well, formless, and that he only appears and only speaks to the adjudicator, whatever his name is, the assessor.
Yes.
And now instead the assessor is the auditor, is the main, if you will, Cenobite of the piece.
Yes.
And I think that's a big misstep, and that's clearly egotism on Gary J. Tunnicliffe's part.
Well, I think it's a little bit of egotism. I think it's also a little bit of, we don't have Doug Bradley.
So we'll hide him.
We are contractually obligated to have Pinhead in the movie. Otherwise, we lose probably the rights to Pinhead. Right. So for it to be a Hellraiser movie, we got to put all the Hellraiser shit in it. But we don't have Doug Bradley, so we have to nerf him. We have to marginalize him.
Maybe I should give him the benefit of the doubt.
So I think that's more of a limitation of contracts than it is ego, if that makes any sense. Then again, the obvious answer is, and just don't fucking make the movie, but then they'd lose the rights and blah, blah, blah,
discussed that.
And at this point, it had been so long where there was the threat that Clive Barker was going to get the rights back. And at this point, he wanted the rights back. And I think there was even lawsuits where he's fighting to get his rights back to stop these movies from being
made. 2 or 3 years before this, he wrote whatever that book was with Harry D'Amour and Pinhead's in it. Scarlet Gospel, which is a frustratingly shit book, but that's a different discussion.
Yeah. My final verdict of this movie is it wouldn't be so bad if it was just its own thing.
Take Pinhead out of it.
Straight to streaming. Yeah, if it was just a Shudder, if it was a movie I saw on Shudder, the police procedural stuff would still be really fucking boring and bad and played out. But the other stuff around it would be interesting and different and creative and fresh enough. I think I'd be okay with it. The problem is the budget limitation. Yes. It's just so much. It's so much fucking easier to get one set and say this is a police station and shoot 3 people sitting at desks looking at evidence. It's like that. That's why all these cheapo movies end up being cop movies, because they're cheap.
And it's cheap as well, because when they go to crime scenes, the preceptor is, elaborately staged, a la The Killer from Seven. We don't ever see a death. It's all the aftermath and just a body lying there with a little bit of cheap makeup applied to it, which is very disappointing if you're in a horror movie trying to see some good kills. And we did discuss whether we should do the best death, but by this stage, there's so few deaths in these films that they're so fucking lame, basically, when they do occur.
Yeah, if this was a screener sent to me by Shudder and they said, "Hey, go ahead and take a look at this," I'd be like, it's a passable C-list direct-to-streaming horror movie, basically. It's got some interesting ideas, some okay performances, not from any of the people, not from the three leads, but whatever. So I give it a 1.5 out of 10.
So harsh. So harsh.
Number 3. It's my number 3. Because again, it's like, well, it's a cop movie. It's a boring cop movie. And the main cop turns out to be a real piece of shit. So much so that he's a Bible-obsessed serial killer.
Yeah, clearly, that's really rough, I think, for this film. I'm giving this a 4 out of 10. It is my second best film of the week.
No. It's time to move on.
We just talked about how it was okay.
Best.
1.5. Jesus, hard task. It's broken me. I think we may have broken Jason, this particular franchise. That only leaves one thing left for us.
It's time to move on to the very obvious best of all of these second half, late stage Hellraiser things, the Hellraiser reboot, which came out in 2022 and has a 66% on Rotten Tomatoes.
What's your deal? It has 6 sides, 6 configurations. It opens up and it cuts you. And then they come to collect.
This film was directed by David Bruckner, is written by Ben Collins, Luke Petrosky, and David S. Goyer.
Jeez, he pops up everywhere.
David S. Goyer's got his fucking fingers in everything.
Yeah.
This film was released October 7th, 2022. We do not know its budget, and it did not have a box office because it went straight to Hulu. I wrote no synopsis for this because we're 10. This is our 11th movie. You know what it is at this point.
I did.
Go ahead, Paul.
Hell is reduced to being wrong one. Fuck. The part you didn't like about the film. Would it be Riley, Jason? Or her story?
Oh my God. So many of these remakes, 2010s, 2020s remakes of these horror movies are identical in style and in story. Female lead is a drug addict who has a traumatic past and then goes through some kind of recapitulation of the thing you've already seen from the first. Usually they don't just take the first movie. They usually take a bunch of the ideas from like the first 3 or 4 movies, the good, quote unquote, good ones, and they just all chuck it in there. And I don't know if it was like people saw the 2013 Evil Dead and were like, that's a pretty good remake, so that's now the template. Mm-hmm. But the idea of drug abuse and getting clean and going to be detoxed and the relationship between that and possession makes a lot of sense. The result in this movie is she's a drug addict, she's an alcoholic, she's a substance abuser. So even though the Cenobites are real, the lament configuration is back, and all this sort of shit, the first half of the movie is still, is she hallucinating? Is this the drugs? Is this in her mind? Who's going to believe her? I'm like, oh my God, I've sat through 10 of these shits. And by the 5th one, this is all they've got. This is all they've got. And even when we get to the remake, it's all they've got is like, well, it's really a metaphor for her trauma. And on top of that, it might all be in her head. Oh my God.
It's funny. I never got that. I never assumed it was in her head at any point in time. I mean, it was the reason why people...
You're supposed to.
The reason why people didn't believe her and why characters were all like dismissive of her and her concerns.
But that's tired.
It is tired.
And here's why.
Yeah, sure.
Because we've already seen fucking Hellraiser.
Yep.
So we know the Cenobites are real.
Yep.
We know the lament configuration is real. This is my problem with sequels and remakes and reboots. When you turn, no pun intended here, when you turn your movie into a fucking mystery box and the mystery has already been solved by 10 fucking movies that came before it, it's a boring ass mystery for the audience. There's nobody in the world who thinks, well, maybe the Cenobites aren't real. We know the Cenobites are real. We know Pinhead is real. Pinhead, the new Pinhead is the fucking face of the cover of this goddamn movie. We know it's not going to be in her head. So to have characters not really believe her because she might be a drug and go through all of this rigmarole and she doesn't know and again, she wakes up. And was that a hallucination or was that a spiritual experience? This, that, whatever. Is my brother really dead or did he just go missing? Oh, I know that he's dead. I know that he's in hell. I know that it is the worst part of this movie because it's a waste of fucking time. Because eventually the box is going to open and fucking Pinhead's going to appear and people are going to get ripped apart. So everything up to that is a waste of time. It fucking sucks. The only time this movie is any good is when we finally, these remakes are so convinced that the dark, like the most recent Evil Dead, if it's so dark you can't see shit and it's always raining and we just have a bunch of digital fucking blood everywhere, that's enough. That's a horror movie now. That's scary. If it just grosses you out or people pissing, shitting, and coming and farting and whatever else, oh, that's scary. That's horrific. Once we get to the actual plot in the fucking mansion, where the mansion is the lament configuration and the fucking kooky occult millionaire built it as a prison for the Cenobites and Leviathan shows up and actual fucking plot happens, that gets interesting. The idea of the lament configuration being one of several configurations is interesting.
Right. Thank you. Yes.
The idea that there are sacrifices that is rather than what made the first Hellraiser kind of terrifying is if you just open the box, if you figure the puzzle box out, fucking chains and hooks shoot the fuck out of it. And within a split second, hell is at your doorstep in the room with you. They realize, well, that's been done. So what if we made it a process where this box demands blood and
blood is the key.
The blood is the key, and each blood sacrifice changes the configuration. And when it's reached, when it's become full of sacrifice, then the box opens, and that allows the movie to be paced differently. That is a creative, interesting, imaginative idea.
I loved that change.
I like that idea.
I love this. I love the expansion of the lore here in that direction. So that each of these configurations of the lament configuration, one of which levels or is the lament configuration, I really love that.
Yes,
that concept, and I love that fact that that it tries to cut you. Like you play with the box enough, it's going to cut you. You're going to be dragged into these proceedings. I thought that was all very cool as well. And that then they add the extra layer of, well, if the box cuts one of the Cenobites, that's still fair game. I thought that was really cool as well. So I was down with all that stuff. I didn't mind the first part as much as you clearly did because it did establish the characters and it gave them a chance to bounce off each other. And yes, the Riley thing's
they're not characters.
Oh, for the purpose of this film, they are. They're enough though. The brother, who's a good guy, and so of course he dies very early on. Then the boyfriend of the brother, and the housemate's nothing. She's a nothing character, and of course gets dispatched. Yeah. It's a twist. It's a very minor twist. The character turn of Trevor being a piece of shit who was employee of Voight the whole way along, and
which is very obvious.
Yeah, and that was. But I liked it. I liked the fact that she realizes you wanted me to fucking be cut by this and be taken by it. And you were saying she didn't say this, but you were saying you loved me, you piece of shit. And I love the fact she turns around and basically stabs it into him and then he's the last to be taken. All of that stuff I liked. I liked Voight and his search to be, or he's kind of like the Frank of this film, and he's willing to throw people and sacrifice them so he can reach this level. We get to see it at the very end. He becomes the newest Cenobite.
The contraption in his chest is really fucking disturbing.
Awful.
The nerve.
Awesome and awful. It's dragging his nerves through it. And again, as you said, and said it very, very well, to Cenobites, this is the ultimate experience. We are travelers beyond the levels of sensory overload you have now. And that the horror of that, the agony of that, which just then comes on randomly at whatever times, however long it is between, is beautifully done. And what a great concept. I thought most importantly, and what I like most about this movie is the Cenobites are creepy again. The Cenobites are well done again. They've spared no expense into turning them into memorable, nasty-looking things that are the stuff of nightmares. So, yeah, the Chatter is back, but he's had a makeover and looks so much better. Pinhead themselves is... I love the way the pins glowed when they walked into certain light. It was beautiful to behold. And then they brought back, I think it's from number 4, the sort of Angelique one where it's the top of the head is ripped open and down to the shoulders, and all that looked great. I thought all the Cenobites were fantastic.
I think in this one they call they call it Gasp.
Yes,
is the name that's been given. Yeah.
So I dug all of that stuff. I thought some of the kills were inventive and enjoyable in a sense of gore. So
when the pin comes out and they stick the pin through that girl's vocal cords,
the shot
screaming, and you hear the vocal.
Yep.
Yeah, but more so the shot, the sound of her vocal cords getting fucked up as she's screaming. That's very disturbing.
You'll have all the time. You've got all of eternity to scream. Like a great line, great delivery, nice processing of the voice.
She's like, what? She's like, because she starts praying. She's like, Pinhead's like, they're like, what are you praying for? And like relief or whatever it was. And you're like, oh, you think heaven is joy, this is joy or whatever. And it's like, yeah, really fucked up. Yeah.
So I think it really plays that. And also, can I say, David Bruckner, by comparison to what we've seen through all of the films going all the way back to Clive Barker, he's a real director. You know, he's got real.
Yes,
he can construct a shot in a way that is great. You're right; it is too dark in some of those places at certain points in the film. I 100% do agree with that. But otherwise, the production design of the house and the metal cage around it, which is the trap for the Cenobites, and it's going to summon Leviathan down. Yeah. I loved all of that stuff, and I loved some of that shot where Leviathan is dropping down, the wide shot of the house, and Christopher Young's score.
The way that the
swells up,
the way the lightning is moving, not down, but is moving like horizontally.
Very cool.
It's very strange looking in the clouds. Yeah, and it's like, oh, something unusual is happening. Like something not of this world is happening. It's a very subtle visual clue that like the natural order's been upset. Yeah, and the fact that they save the Christopher Young score until the very end, and then it fucking swells.
Beautiful.
And yeah, I agree. Yeah, that's very masterfully done, which is like that's the part of the movie I think works the best. It's once they get to the mansion. Which they must have been inspired by Hellraiser Hellworld, I guess, for that. But so the original description of the Hell Priest, who we come to know as Pinhead, is that I don't know if this is true of all of the Cenobites, but it's definitely true of the Hell Priest, was that they were originally androgynous. They were genderless. They had no discernible gender. So I think it's a very clever idea of casting a trans woman in that role.
Yep.
Because we'll say whatever you want. Doug Bradley has a very like baritone.
He's very masculine. Yeah.
Pinhead is a dude.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Pinhead, like the movie Pinhead, Doug Bradley, who is still the best Pinhead, obviously, the best Hell Priest, but is it's a masculine presence.
The box, you opened it.
Yeah,
we
came. Yeah. This though, where
the
modulation they put on the voice, where it's masculine and feminine because it's a trans woman, and so there's obviously still that maleness to the voice, but it is feminized. And then the weird reverb and everything. It's sort of like it's just more androgynous. And the fact that I don't know if you've ever seen Jamie Clayton and what she looks like outside of the Pinhead makeup.
I'm not sure their pronouns, so I'm sorry if I was mispronouncing before with doing they in there.
I think she is I think Jamie Clayton is she.
She? I apologize. So yeah, I saw her in Sense8, the Wachowskis series.
Gorgeous.
Yeah, very, very attractive.
I don't know if in Sense8 that I've never seen Sense8, but I've seen real life photos of them, out and about or whatever. Fucking gorgeous. The idea that you take this gorgeous person, because they say what everyone about Doug Bradley, not a handsome man, not a handsome guy, weird looking dude,
not traditionally,
but you take this kind of a smoke show and then you make them this grotesque. And because people talked about we talked about the first episode, the direction from Clive Barker when they were making the original Cenobites, when he was trying to describe it was It is grotesque glamour. That's what they look like. And I think in a certain sense, the Jamie Clayton Pinhead captures that a little bit more. I feel like the original Cenobites are in a way more grotesque, but there's a weird there's like an odd glamour to these ones. I don't know if it's because of the way the skin is peeled.
Not a word I would use, glamour.
They're shapelier because they're not wearing the S&M gear. Their Cossacks, their outfits are carvings that are in their flesh, in their bodies. They're not, so they're much more
lithe.
I don't even really say nude, but they're much more. It's like the figures of the shapes of the Cenobites are much more noticeable. And so there's like this skin, and some people have complained about it because they think it looks too plasticky, but there's like the skin, there's like a sheen to them almost, that's almost like shark skin in a weird way, like doll skin. So the look here is very distinct and very well done, and there is a sort of horrific beauty to them in a way that I don't think you could, and especially with Pinhead, the Hell Priest, because you couldn't get that with Doug Bradley because he's kind of a weird looking dude, weird looking British dude. And here is, Jamie Clayton, who is a very attractive trans woman who's put in this sexually androgynous role. And it's not better than Doug Bradley, but it works differently than Doug Bradley.
I think it works really well. And if we're ranking our Pinheads and we're not, obviously Doug Bradley's going to win.
Well, this is obviously the second best.
But Jamie Clayton is a million miles ahead of the other two that we've seen in the latter films thus far.
Yeah, and I think by default, this is up there as far as one of the best Hellraisers ever made. In totality, on its own, if you just showed me this movie, I don't think it's that great. I don't like the Riley character. I think major portions of it are boring. I think it's obviously not a mystery, so forth and so on. But when we're looking at the franchise as a whole, it's fine. It's a solid reimagining. I think it is beleaguered by all of the tropes of the 2010s horror remakes where it's so fucking dark and it's just whatever. But so I give this one a 5.75 out of 10. It's my number one for this week. I'll let you know how it ranks the whole series here.
Oh, gee, I didn't do that, so I better do some quick math while we take a short break. No.
Better figure it out.
No, I really enjoyed this one, and I guess it is probably largely because it's coming through the hell, I use that word quite deliberately, of all the previous entries on this side of the divide for part 2 of our Spooktacular. I was so relieved to come to a good-looking film, which the first time around, it is too long. It could have 10 minutes shaved off the first half, no problem at all, and be a better film for it. Probably even 15 minutes if they edited it really well. Take that out of the equation. I don't think you're meant to like Riley. Do I like her by the end? A little bit more. That she could have been softened as a character, and that would have been better. But otherwise, I really enjoyed this entry, and it's absolutely one of the best films in this franchise. I'm giving it a 6.8 out of 10.
I think with the Riley and all this, I think there's a lot of the same stuff I hate from the sequels. It's in this movie where it's another despicable low-life character who's the protagonist following a mystery that isn't a mystery, just end up getting the Pinhead at the end. So I don't really, it has some of the best elements of the early films, but it still has the bad tropes from the sequel. So it's time for a recap. Coming in dead last for this week is Hellraiser Revelations, 0 out of 10, nominated for the Anti-Vault by me. Hellraiser Deader is my number 5. We came in 2005. I give it a 1.1 out of 10. Hellraiser Hellseeker, 2002. I give it a 1.5 out of 10. Coming number 3 is Hellraiser Judgment, 2018. Give it a 1.75 out of 10. Number 2 is Hellraiser Hellworld, which came out in 2005. I give it a 2.5. And coming in as number 1 is the 2022 remake Hellraiser. Give it 5.75 out of 10.
And for me, slightly different order, same end result. My worst of the week, Hellraiser Deader, 0.5 out of 10. Hellraiser Hellseeker, 1.5 out of 10 is my 5th film of the week. My fourth best film of the week, Hellraiser Revelations, 1.8 out of 10. So much higher than Jason. It's frightening. 3, Hellraiser Hellworld, 3 out of 10. My number 2, Hellraiser Judgment, 4 out of 10. And then with a bullet, Hellraiser 2022 version is my number 1 film of the week and my nomination for the guest list on this season of Binge Movies with a 6.8 out of 10.
It's time for a series recap. Get to work, Paul.
All right.
Coming in dead last for me out of the entire series is Hellraiser Revelations, 0 all the fucking way. Coming in at number 11. Coming in number 10 is Hellraiser Deader, which I give a 1.10 out of 10. Coming in at, I guess it would be. Well, let me start this up. Okay.
Yeah, you work it out.
It's time for a series recap. Coming in dead last for me out of the entire series is Hellraiser Revelations, 0 all the fucking way. But coming in number 10 is Hellraiser Deader. Coming in at number 9 is Hellraiser Hellseeker. Coming in at number 8 is Hellraiser Inferno. Coming in at number 7 is Hellraiser Hellworld. Coming in number 6 is Hellraiser Hell on Earth. Coming in at number... Wait, I think I fucked this up. Let me count.
I told you, we've broken
1,
Jason.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I'm missing one. The fuck am I missing? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I'm missing one. Deader, Hellseeker. Oh, I'm missing... No, Revelation. I'm missing Judgment. I'm missing Hellraiser Judgment. Let me go back up here. All right, it's time for a series recap. This is not the 5th time we've tried to record this.
4th.
Coming in at number 11 for me is Hellraiser Revelations. Coming in at number 10 is Hellraiser Deader. Coming in at number 9 is Hellraiser Judgment. Coming in at number 8 is Hellraiser Hellseeker. Coming in at number 7 is Hellraiser Inferno. Coming in at number 6 is Hellraiser Hellworld. Coming in at number 5 is Hellraiser 3 Hell on Earth. Coming in at number 4 is Hellraiser 4 Bloodline. Coming in at number 3 is the 2022 Hellraiser remake. Coming in at number 2 is Hellbound Hellraiser 2. And coming in at number 1 by a long ass country mile, the distance between this and every other movie on the list is the equivalent distance between me and Paul from Akron to Perth. Hellraiser 1987 is the best Hellraiser movie ever made. The rest will burn in hell.
Right, well, by contrast, and there is some significant contrast here, my worst of the entire series, Hellraiser Deader. I'm not going to give the score. It is just so bad. It's ridiculous. My second worst, number 10, Hellraiser Hellseeker. 9, Hellraiser Revelation. 8, Hellraiser Inferno. 7, Hellraiser Hellworld. 6, best film in this franchise, still failing with a 4 out of 10, Hellraiser Judgment, which is exactly the same score that I gave Hellraiser Bloodlines, which is a slightly better film, my 5th best of the week. Number 4, Hellbound, Hellraiser 2 with a 6 out of 10. Number 3, Hellraiser 2022 with a 6.8 out of 10. My second best film of the week, of the month, of the year, of the Spooktacular, Hellraiser, the original, 7 out of 10. And I'm sticking by it.
Unreal.
I don't care. My favorite film in this franchise, Hellraiser 3, Hell on Earth, 7.2 out of 10. Sticking fat.
That's embarrassing. Paul?
It's been a week. It's been a fortnight, Jason. It's been a year. Holy shit.
It's been a fortnight.
Whew.
As this episode comes out, Slashers will be culminating its first limited series, its first run. So go ahead and check that out in all of your favorite podcast apps. I'll put the link below in these show notes. If we get enough reviews, if we get enough downloads, we need reviews on Apple Podcasts and Spotify.
We might come back.
I'm saying we need like 100 reviews.
Oh, Jesus.
Straight out the gate.
Well, it was nice having fun doing the Slashers podcast.
We need to hit the charts and hit them hard for us to be able to make the time to greenlight a second season.
That's it.
So, so if you enjoy what we're doing over there, let us know and go support us over there. And if not, we just won't ever do it again. It's that simple. So,
one-off 7-episode series. Thanks for coming. Get out of here, you mugs. We hate your shit.
Yeah. Yep. But the good news is Paul will be back. Paul will return to Binge Movies.
Spooktacular number 5.
To talk about The Lady Vanishes, The 400 Blows, Seven Samurai, The Grand Illusion, Armacord.
You gotta find someone else.
55, 54, 38, 74, 59.
No, I can't do it. I would almost rather watch these 6 Hellraiser films again.
Would you watch all 11 Hellraisers before you'd watch the 400 Blows?
No, I'd watch the 400 Blows before watching 11 films, but 5 French New Wave films, I might watch the whole 11 Hellraiser.
Seven Samurai is not French New Wave.
Okay, that's a good film.
Kurosawa,
but it's fucking long.
You, for 4 years, going on 5 years now, have been complaining at the very top of this episode.
Yeah, I did.
You've been
Can I not choose the kind of genre?
Why don't I ever get to watch good movies? Why don't I ever get to watch good movies? And I'm offering you the first 5 entries into the Criterion Collection ever.
Could we not?
Those are the first
pick
5.
The best 5 entries?
Grand Illusion, Seven Samurai, Lady Vanishes, Armacord, 400 Blows. First 5 Criterion Collection films ever.
2 of them.
And you're not going to do it.
Yeah, I think you can find something else for me. You should give it to a real film critic who enjoys that shit. What about this, Jason? Can I pitch some ideas to you off air about what we could do it somewhere down the line? And meanwhile, you can pitch ideas to me about not movies that you want to come on the countdown and do before the end of the year.
No.
Oh, come on.
Am I a film podcaster or a film Cenobite?
To me, angels to some, demon to me.
Very good. Very good. All right, Paul, you can find The Countdown at The Countdown PC on Twitter. You can find them on Patreon, patreon.com/The Countdown Podcast.
Yeah, no, The Countdown PC, I think. I don't know. The countdownpodcast.com. All our links there. Go there.
Yeah, all their links are there. Find their Facebook listener community. You can vote on all their sort of stuff. You give them a rating, a review, all that great shit.
Please do.
Paul, there is an Instagram. Paul doesn't upload to it. There's a YouTube. Paul doesn't upload to it.
That's true. I don't.
To support The Countdown.
I do occasionally put a post up on a screen that we're going to on Instagram, but yeah, it's just one thing too many. Although that said, now that Twitter has become X, maybe it's just time to shift everything over to Instagram. You continue to confound and make the rest of us film podcasters look silly by comparison with your in-depth analysis and the wonderful guests that you have on. Present company most definitely excluded. But I do very much enjoy getting to sit here and rip apart a film franchise that's horror-based. I'm sure your listeners will pick something appropriate for the 5th spectacular, spooktacular, or whatever we're calling it these days. So thank you again, sir, for having me on.
It's been the same thing for years. Spooktacular.
Good. That one. Excellent. Looking forward to it.
You've gotten too comfortable around here. You used to be a pro's pro.
Oh, now what do you say? Hellraiser. Not Hellraiser. Halloween broke me, remember? I couldn't get all my scores right.
It really did, man. So I really have fucked your head. Yeah. It's crazy.
And then plus the slashes I watched this week. Holy shit. Whew, that one, 1982, episode 1. Part one of that.
Good run. It's a good run of movies. I liked it. Until next time, binge on.
It's prank week at Glazier College. And the frat boys are out for blood.
You won't get away with those foolish pranks this year.
But what these party animals don't realize,
I now command you to appear.
is they've got 3 new pledges from hell.
Let's take a tour around, schmucks.
Yeah. Wait.
Now, the ghoulies are about to learn what higher education is all about. Brewskis.
I'll just take one.
babes.
So, what's your major?
And partying hardy.
They drink our brews. This is war.
Look, there's been a murder on campus.
Sorry, operator. Frankly.
They may flunk out on manners, but they get an A in mayhem. Ghoulies 3. Ghoulies go to college. They put the animal back in the house.